This is Attack of the 20th Century. Thank you for joining us as we explore science fiction, fantasy, and horror films of the 20th century. I'm your host, Jeff.
And I'm your other host, Kim.
Welcome to episode 45, where we continue our summer swim series with the 1980 film Alligator.
Woo!
Look for us on Instagram and Facebook at Attack of the 20th Century. That's 20th. We post our next movie selection there. You can comment, give your thoughts, and they just might make it on the air. So how are you doing?
I'm good.
Our little boy turns 18 this weekend.
Little boy. He's taller than most of us put together in this house.
Yes. We're too young to have an 18-year-old.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right? Maybe we're not. We weren't exactly young parents, so I think we're plenty old enough to have an 18-year-old. We just don't want to recognize it.
Wow, an adult son.
Yeah.
Anyway, we always talk about what you've been watching lately.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you and I have the same thing to talk about this week.
Yeah. We watched something together.
We watched it together. We went to the movie theater and saw Asteroid City, the
Just
newest
like a
film.
date.
What's that?
I said just like a date.
Just like a date. That's what we do. It's the newest film by Wes Anderson. Mm-hmm. It's considered a very meta piece because it's a movie about a play that's being produced, and you get to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff that's happening.
Okay, so the movie opens on, it's almost like an opening to a Twilight Zone episode because you have a narrator telling you what's about to happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's a narrator telling you, you're about to watch this play, but we filmed it for television. But of course, we, the audience, are watching this as a movie. Mm-hmm. So when the movie itself zooms in on the play, you're watching it as if that is the movie that's happening. But then it zooms out of itself and you're watching the behind the scenes of the filming of the play and what's going on with the actors' real lives and directorial decisions. And it's very meta.
Yeah. What's really great about keeping the differentiation between the two is the play is in color.
Right.
That Wes Anderson, very rich, stylistic color.
And that era is perfect for his color scheme. Like that 1950s retro futuristic, those are Wes Anderson colors.
Yeah, they really are.
So it's perfect.
I was super excited about this movie because retro futurism is just a really great aesthetic.
Yeah,
that's something
you
I
love
love. One thing Wes Anderson does is something that Woody Allen would do. Woody Allen would get all these big name actors and pay them union wage.
Right.
It's because they wanted the opportunity to work with Woody Allen.
Right. It was an opportunity. Yeah.
And so these actors that work in a Wes Anderson film also take huge salary cuts to be able to do these types of films. And that's how they're able to turn a profit, because these aren't big money makers.
Right. They're niche. Wes Anderson is a niche kind of guy, right? Mm-hmm. So I wonder, there's a big, we've been in the middle of a writer's strike, I guess, but now I think just this week, right? The actors, I can't think of what the acronym is for them.
SAG.
Yeah, SAG dash whatever it is now. Mm-hmm. They've just voted to go on strike too. So what does that do to people like Wes Anderson that are...
I think they shut down for a little bit.
Yeah. He's got to live off of his bank account for a while, which he's probably doing fine.
He's probably doing fine. Yeah.
It's just, something I hadn't thought about till just now.
So he has his normal favorites. Jason Schwartzman, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody. But then this film has a few new ones. Mm-hmm. Tom Hanks, I think this is the first time we've seen him in
I don't
Wes
recall
Anderson.
seeing Tom Hanks in any other Wes Anderson before.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, normally there's a Gwyneth Paltrow spot in Wes Anderson films, and I think ScoJo has bumped out Gwyneth Paltrow in this one.
Maybe so.
Maybe.
But
Stole her
Tilda
lunch
Swinton's
money.
in there too. She's a normal.
Yeah, we usually see Tilda
Jeffrey
Swinton.
Wright's a normal one. But Steve Carell.
Oh, he's new in this one. That's right.
Yeah.
We don't normally see him in a Wes Anderson.
He reminded me a little bit of his role from Anchorman.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of...
Square peg-ish.
Square peg. I think he's more dim in Anchorman than he is in this one.
Yeah.
So what did you think about this movie? Did you enjoy this one? Where does it rank in the Wes Anderson catalog, in your opinion?
Oh, I'd say I liked it a lot better than French Dispatch. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot about this movie that I really liked. I don't know that anything's ever going to beat out Fantastic Mr. Fox for me.
Yeah.
But I do hold out high hopes because he's covering another Roald Dahl story sometime later this year. Well, I say that now that we have all these strikes. Maybe it won't be 2023. But he's supposed to be covering another Roald Dahl story, which Fantastic Mr. Fox was.
Yeah.
So there's chance that Fantastic Mr. Fox could get dethroned at some point. But this is not it. I'd say Life Aquatic's pretty high up that list for me.
Yeah.
So this one's probably falls, I don't know, 4th or 5th. And I haven't seen all of Wes Anderson's films either. There's a few that we still haven't covered yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really like Fantastic Mr. Fox and then Life Aquatic. They're both kind of 1A and 1B, just depending if you're more in a kid,
right?
Yeah, kids movie mood or an adult film.
That's true. Not adult film like that.
Yeah.
But there are some adult themes in it.
Yeah. Grand Budapest is probably better than this, I would say.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Grand Budapest is really good.
And we've mentioned Wes Anderson movies before. I think what's fascinating about them is that you remember them, you think about them for days.
Yeah.
It's not just I watched a movie and that's it.
No, that's what I love about. And I'm not a huge Woody Allen fan, but there are themes that get brought up in a lot of his movies that you can keep having conversations about.
Yeah.
Or it makes you think about something beyond just I watched this movie for entertainment.
Yeah. And I think, too, Anderson's films have this dichotomy. They have hilarity, there's ridiculousness, there's silliness.
I was going to say absurdity, but yeah, ridiculousness.
But then there's also this underlying sadness, tragic lives, rough circumstances, kind of this darkness. And you think about this movie in particular, there's a family that's lost their mom. The wife of the mom of the family's gone.
And dad doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah. So he's struggling with those emotions. You have an actress who kind of has an empty life. And there's a little bit of a budding romance that's happening between ScoJo and Jason Schwartzman's character.
Right.
And it's kind of masked because there's so many laughs happening all around it.
But it's like it's very thinly veiled. Like, it. It's there. So it's like, I wouldn't go so far as to say there's like an existential vibe because his movies always drive forward. Like there's still something else to come. There's hope, right? Like you have to have hope to keep moving. So it's like just on the edge of existentialism. Yeah. But we still keep moving on, you know? And of course the bright, rich, saturated colors really, kind of help that. All right, it's time for us to dive back into our summer swim series with this week's movie. There will be spoilers, so if you don't like that, hit pause now, go watch the movie, and join us later.
That's right.
Yeah, so this week we are covering the 1980s Alligator film. And did you know that it has an 84% critic score on Rotten Tomato?
Nice.
That's pretty high for an 80s, B...
It's not a big budget film.
Right.
And I know it was accused of some people being a ripoff of Jaws.
Sure, yeah.
So to get an 84 is pretty darn high.
I think that's amazing. Okay, so here's the kicker. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is only 49%. What's that about?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird, right? The
it's
critics are giving it.
Think.
Yeah. Usually the audience loves something and the critics poo-poo it. But this is the reverse. I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Weird, huh?
Well, let's tell you about the film. It opens with young Marissa, remember that name?
Yes.
And her parents at an alligator theme park in Florida, watching an alligator handler trip, fall, and then get his limb gnawed on.
Yes.
Despite this graphic display, her parents agreed to purchase a baby alligator for their daughter before driving back to Chicago. Without much explanation, one day, the dad comes home, grouchy mood, goes upstairs when the daughter's not home, gets the gator, and flushes it down the toilet.
Hold on. As a mom, I'm going to say there was explanation. He found gator turds behind the laundry hamper, and he was ticked.
Yeah, we can't
have that. So that
that
feels like some mom energy right there to me, but dad found the turds behind the laundry hamper, and he wasn't having it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And this gator that the daughter has dubbed Ramon.
Yes, Ramon.
Now is flushed down the toilet, and then they are telling her that the gator died.
Yeah, they found it dead. They had to get rid of it, whatever. That's all she knows.
So 12 years later, we are introduced to police detective David Madison, played by Robert Forster. He's pulled into investigating a series of events involving detached human limbs floating out of the sewers into a water treatment plant. Mm-hmm. Madison checks out the sewers, discovers this big, vicious, oversized alligator who tragically eats Madison's younger fellow cop, Kelly. Mm-hmm. We learn that there's an evil corporation, Slade Pharmaceuticals, that they've been experimenting with growth hormones on dogs that they buy from a sleazy pet store owner.
Yeah.
He kidnaps these pet dogs from the neighborhood,
Yes.
takes them, they get experimented on, and then when they're to be disposed of, he dumps them out into the sewer.
Yeah, he's like their do boy.
And then that's where Ramon finds these remains. He munches on them and grows at this incredible rate and then incredible size.
Yes, whatever they're feeding these dogs in this lab is doing Ramon the alligator some favors.
Yeah.
Growth hormone, human growth hormone or something. I don't know. Alligator growth hormone.
Detective Madison and his superior officer, Chief Clark, lead a mission to scare the alligator out of the sewers with the majority of the Chicago police force. It's like a big deal. Mm-hmm. The alligator outwits them and heads into downtown Chicago, where he bursts out of a storm drain, enjoys a killing spree, and escapes into a lake. The mayor and the police chief bring in a big game hunter named Brock, who's very smug in his interviews, fancies himself as kind of a ladies' man and a tough guy.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he's eaten by the alligator.
You knew that guy was going down.
Madison teams up with a young, attractive reptile specialist named Marissa.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yes, that is the same Marissa who lost her gator down the toilet the first part of the film. As they close in to figure out Slade Pharmaceuticals is linked to this mammoth gator, Mr. Slade calls in a favor to the mayor and gets the detective fired from the police force.
Poor Robert Forster.
Yeah. This proves to be Slade's undoing because Ramon the alligator makes his way to a wedding held on Mr. Slade's estate, and he dines on several guests, including the dirty mayor, the scientist behind the ghastly experiments, and Mr. Slade himself.
That's right. Well, I don't think he eats Mr. Slade, but he
That's true.
Definitely takes him out.
He gives the limo a beat down with his tail.
Yeah.
Crushes Mr. Slade.
Mr. Slade's in the limo.
Madison and Marissa lure the alligator back to the sewers to a section plagued with methane gas. They set off an explosive and put an end to the life of Ramon. But in the final scene, we see a new baby alligator drop out of a pipe into the sewer, setting up a future sequel. Mm-hmm. This film was directed by Lewis Teague, probably best known for directing The Jewel of the Nile.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, that is a sequel to Romancing the Stone.
I love that movie too.
Cat's Eye with young Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, that freaked me out as a kid. Mm-hmm. I had some nightmares.
Yeah. And then Cujo, the killer dog story.
I know of Cujo, but I don't think I ever watched. I might have seen parts of Cujo.
Well, we might have to see that one. That's on Peacock, I think, right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when did you first see this film? And what was your first impression?
I first saw this film a few nights ago with you. Yeah. First impressions, it was not as much of a B movie as I was expecting. Mm-hmm. There's actually, I know we'll get into this later, there's some quality in this movie that I was not really expecting. Mm-hmm. Last episode, we talked about just the really good practical effects with the orcas.
Yeah.
And I think this maybe even raised the bar higher as far as practical effects go.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was we live in Florida. We know alligators. These were some convincing looking alligators.
Yeah. Yeah, we were ready to make fun of it. There's a scene where this huge gator is just walking on the pavement, slithering kind of, how gators do.
Yeah, kind of sway-ish.
And I was looking at it, and it looked real.
Yeah.
It looked good.
Yeah. I listened to an interview with Lewis Teague, and who else was in that interview? They talked to Robert Forster over the phone, and somebody asked them how they got the effects down so nicely. And he said, oh, well, it was the first use of CGI in Hollywood. And they were like, for real? And he was like, no, it was not.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So, I watched it with you the other night. It's very similar to the movie Orca for me. I remember the gator being flushed down the toilet scene when I was a kid.
Okay.
It was on TV, and I watched it with my parents.
Okay.
And then I saw it was on Shudder, and we watched it together.
And we watched it.
Let's go ahead and just dive right into our standouts.
Sure.
What is a standout from this film, in your opinion?
Well, I kind of already spoiled that by talking about the practical effects, but there were really good. I mean, obviously the baby gators were real baby gators.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they shot the footage of the gator farm entertainment type thing at the beginning of the movie. It's supposed to be in Florida, and it very well could be. Those things existed up until, I don't know, a few years ago, and they may still exist to some extent. I don't know that people are still wrestling gators, but they're definitely still like places you can go to see live yet captive gators. So that all probably was real footage until the guy, gets his leg mangled. So they did a good job of using real animals where they could, but then they used like a real ginormous mammoth gator creation that looked very organic. Like it looked and moved very well for what it was. I did hear when I listened to this interview with the director, they had a funny story where someone else had used this giant gator made out of, I forget what it had, like a bamboo frame and some sort of like rubbery neoprene skin on it or whatever. And somebody offered to let them use this for the making. Oh, we already have this like whatever size it was, ginormous thing. It said in storage, come get it or we'll deliver it, whatever. And like the day it got delivered to the set, like it got dropped or bobbled when they were unloading it or something. And the whole thing just like turned to dust. Like it had dry rotted in storage. And it was just like, like unusable.
Yeah.
So they had to go about building their own. And the new one, they actually built with a steel frame. I don't know what materials they used to get the skin to look right, but the skin looks like gator skin. I mean, it's, and you don't even get any, I always think of, you watch a lot of old Japanese things with our son, Godzilla movies. You always see like creases when somebody in the suit bends their elbows or their joints and you get like that rubbery creasing. Like you don't see that on this gator. Like it moves like a gator.
Yeah.
But he hired two NFL linebackers.
Really?
So it's a massive suit, you know. So not all of the shots involve him. They did a lot of like using models and using live gators and shooting on, smaller models to make them look huge. But anytime someone's being chomped on, it's that giant mechanical gator's mouth.
Okay.
So that gets a big zoom in, and then when they zoom away from that, it's other various alligator footage and whatnot. But it's effective.
Yeah. It's really smart too. They'll have a chase scene and the gator's head will show up and they'll do a quick shot of that and cut away to something else.
It's a little bit like keeping your monster in the dark, right?
Yeah.
It's just wise use of the good footage.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. It looked really good and really convincing to me.
Yeah, so here's a little more trivia. So they had to rebuild from scratch this giant animatronic gator, right? Well, afterwards, they decided to donate it to the University of Florida because their mascot is the Gators. Yeah. So I guess the University of Florida in Gainesville used it as their team mascot for a time. And so he would like show up, before games and at halftime. So I don't know if they still have him, if he bit the dust eventually, or I don't know. But I thought it was pretty funny.
That is funny.
Ramon the Gator.
One other thing on the effects, Bryan Cranston worked on this film.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You told me this.
I watched a YouTube video with him, and he said he normally would apply for extra parts as an actor. And then this came open, like they needed another set of hands on the film Alligator. And so he did odds and end jobs around the office. And then somebody came to the office and said, hey, does somebody want to help the special effects team? We're doing the big blow up. Because, at the end of the movie, they blow up this humongous gator. And I guess they needed somebody to pack the gator full of stuff. They're going to blow it up, so they need guts to fly everywhere.
Yeah.
So
I wonder what they used for that, because it wasn't the real animatronic gator.
No.
Or they wouldn't have been able to donate it.
Right. It was something else.
Something
else, but he worked on that. That's how, I wouldn't say that's how he got a start, but he was part of that in his beginning career.
And then Robert Forster gets to show up in Breaking Bad later, right?
Yeah,
he makes a little bit appearance in I haven't watched Breaking Bad, but I heard that in the interview I watched.
Yeah,
so he gets to show up on Breaking Bad later. That's kind of a funny turn of events.
Full circle.
Yep.
So Robert Forster, I'll give him a standout for this film. In most of the scenes, he's in them. Like it's either the alligator or it's Robert Forster pretty much.
Yeah, it's almost a monologue.
And he does this cop act really well. The investigative work. He's really convincing in a situation that's a little bit non-plausible, right?
Sure.
He makes it plausible, right? By how he acts, how he reacts to the different situations. He wrestles with these demons from his past. I guess his partner was murdered when he was with the St. Louis Police Department. he thought he had a gun to his head, but it was a roll of pennies. And they ended up shooting his partner. So he's wrestling with those demons.
Right.
Like,
He feels like he let him down. Yeah.
I could have fought, but
he froze.
I froze. He's working in a tough environment because all the cops in his department, they don't really trust him.
Yeah, they don't really know him. Mm-hmm.
Don't know him. They don't trust him. He's got a bad reputation.
Yeah.
He's got kind of this boss that flip-flops on him.
Yeah, his boss is a little too enmeshed with the local, the mayor, the government, and the local money bags.
Yeah.
Like there's too much glad handing going on there.
Yeah. And nothing's ever good enough. He's always kind of riding Robert Forster's character, Detective Madison, and wanting him to do better, do things different. And, it's a high-stress environment, too. Like, he's got to lead this whole expedition through the sewers in that one sequence.
Yeah.
And he's commanding, 30, 40 people down there. Big, stressful situation, and his boss is there. It's just in his ear, on him about every little thing. The press is there. The press is always after him.
Oh, yeah. The press wants to get this guy all the time, at every turn. And he's a cop in Chicago. Like, that's got to be one of the most stressful jobs on the planet to begin with.
Yeah. So we know Robert Forster's good. He won an Oscar for Jackie Brown, a Quentin Tarantino film.
Oh, yeah.
He's really good in that. He was in The Black Hole, Disney sci-fi film.
That's right.
Like the year before. And I don't know. I know it's a science fiction film, but it looks like it was made 10 years before this movie. This movie looks really good.
Yeah.
It looks modern. I'm using quotes. Like, it looks way more modern than Disney's movie, The Black Hole.
The Black Hole looks retro compared to this movie.
Yeah. One more standout I'll throw out. His boss, played by Michael Gazzo. Michael Gazzo is actually an Oscar winner. He won for his role in Godfather 2.
Oh.
And he plays this likable kind of character, charismatic personality, but he's definitely a fence sitter. And at first I really liked him. You're drawn to him.
Right.
Big, fun personality. A guy that you would want to work with.
Sure.
But then you see how quickly he turns on his guy.
Yeah, once the mayor makes a little phone call.
The mayor.
You're like, ah.
Yeah. No apologies. He just, delivers the bad news. And I don't know. I know he was a little bit of a turnoff for you in this film. You can talk about that in a second. But this guy, I know this guy. I see this guy in the workforce. Big voice, but ultimately bends to the will of his superiors.
Right.
I think we all, and if you work in a corporate environment, you know people like that, right?
That's probably true.
But he plays his part in a unique way. He adds life to the film. Like, if you look around at the other cops in the precinct, a lot of them are kind of stereotypical cops.
Yeah.
But this guy, he elevates the material, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. All right, so now it's time to talk about setbacks, I believe. So I'm going to start with the mom and dad characters, and that would be Marissa when she's a little girl. Her mom and dad at the beginning of the movie. They're just like wildly just crazy. They almost felt like the parents from Matilda, like the Danny DeVito version with, what's her name?
Rhea Perlman.
Yeah, Rhea Perlman. Like, they're so over the top. It feels like they're in a Roald Dahl film. Meanwhile, everybody else is in like a Nature Gone Bad or a monster film. And this mom and dad are like in some kooky, I don't know, early 80s Disney production or something. Like, they're just kind of over the top. They're just odd. They're just a little too much.
And then he meets the mom later in the film.
Right,
and
yeah.
She's still
so they go
to be.
away because we're not dealing with them. Once we're past the Ramon gets flushed, we don't see her parents again for 12 years. And then, Robert Forster's cop character meets Marissa's mom later in life. Dad has passed on or something. And she's still just like even more zany than she was when Marissa was young. Like, she's just just doesn't shut up and just says crazy things, like real crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. They just kind of took me out. They were like in a different movie than everybody else was.
Yeah. Just kind of odd, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Another setback I'll throw out, the wedding scene. I think it added way more camp than the rest of the film had.
I agree.
People are running away from this thing very slowly. It was a little Austin Powers-ish.
Well, okay, so it's like a 25-foot gator.
Yeah.
Now, gators can move fast when they want to, but anything that size is not moving at lightning speed. And people are running away from it like they're stuck in molasses or something.
Yeah.
They're like running through peanut butter, They're like, oh, can't get away, It's just like, what is happening? Like,
He should have killed maybe one or two people.
Yes, and clearly these are not Floridians because we all tell everybody, run in a serpentine fashion. They can't zigzag. You zig, they zag. They'll never catch you. Nobody's doing that in this movie. Everybody's like tripping over their own feet right into the gator's mouth.
Yeah, and the scene where the mayor, gets locked out of the limo and the alligator's coming up to him, he could have easily just run away.
Right.
Mr. Slade's driver could have easily just turned on the vehicle and drove away. And
no, it was like safe. He sat there and watched it all happen and got beat to death.
So it was all funny in a way, like it was all gratifying, I guess, in a way to see all of Detective Madison's enemies get wiped out by this gator, I guess.
Yes. Oh, it really is the ultimate revenge story, right?
Yeah.
Because really, everybody is against this cop. And everybody that was against this cop gets their comeuppance.
Yeah.
He gets justified for everything, basically.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
But because the way people were running away so slowly and the plausibility of it, it just got very campy.
Yes.
So for me, the way my beat on this story is like I'm all in, up until that scene. It gets super campy, and then I get pulled back into the ending.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that ending scene here in a minute.
All right.
But this, 5-10 minute segment is a little bit too out there. Too zany. Like it doesn't fit with the rest of the film, I should say.
No, it's kind of just everything runs amok all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that does it for our setbacks. Some of the other people in the film, Robin Riker, she plays Marissa, the adult version. This was her film debut. I thought she did pretty good.
No, I did. She's a very attractive lady. I thought she did a good job too. There were a few times where I just felt like she was a little too doughy-eyed for Robert Forster's character. Like, I wanted to be like, hey, we're in a monster movie here. Like, stop with the bedroom eyes. Like, everything he said, she was like just gazing at him with these adoring doe eyes. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
There's an alligator on the loose and you're the herpetologist. Like, do your job.
Right.
But overall, she did a great, especially if this is her like breaking role.
Yeah.
She did a pretty good job.
Yeah. When I watched it too, I first thought like, well, why would she be interested in him? Because she's so much younger and more attractive. But there is that scene where he's commanding 40, 50 people. There's this huge emergency situation in Chicago. And he's like exerting manliness and
machismo,
leadership and, all these things. Like she was just digging.
Yeah. Okay.
So I kind of bought into it a little more probably. Now, what did you think of their love story in general, though? There's a moment when he's disappointed in how things are going.
Yeah. So I was actually buying their love story, besides the fact that she was a little too just a little too moon-eyed for him. But there's a part, like when things are kind of falling apart, he gets fired from his job because of the mayor and the money being involved and all of that. So he's just down. And she tries to be tender towards, they're in a diner or something. And she tries to be like tender towards him and say, wow, that must feel terrible or something. She mentions his feelings.
Yeah.
And he like flips like a switch.
Yeah.
And is like, basically, get out of my sight. I don't ever want to talk to you again. Like, it was like a you don't know me kind of moment.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really any cause for it. Now they make up later and all's good in the end, but it was just this really like, wait, were there lines written in that got taken out that we didn't know about? Like, it just seemed really out of the blue. Like he responded to her like that for that? What just happened?
Right. It felt a little manufactured.
Right.
Their drama felt a little manufactured.
For sure.
Now, what did you think of Brock, the big game hunter?
Ugh.
Yeah.
I think he left a slime trail behind him when he walked. Like, he was so skeevy. Not a fan.
He's a big jerk in a lot of episodes of different shows.
Yeah.
I recognize him from an episode from Buck Rogers.
Okay.
He's a big slime
I
in
was
that.
saying, he looks super familiar. Like, I definitely have seen him playing a bad guy somewhere else.
Yeah.
He just looks skeevy.
Yeah. But he fit the part really well.
Yeah.
Now's the time when we talk about our favorite scene.
All right.
What's yours?
My favorite scene is not for any like cinematic prowess or touching, moving moment, but it's more for just the I don't know, bombacity of the of the scene. And it's really where they thought all those cops were down in the sewer. They thought they were going to flush out. They were all going to walk down these different tunnels and flush the gator out and shoot him to death or something.
Yeah.
And he jukes him. The gator gets away and he ends up busting up through the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Like through a manhole, but bigger than him. He blows the manhole apart, because he's so ginormous. And he ends up, there's a bunch of like youth hanging out on a corner, and they're running and screaming and yelling and get away. It was like this gator's Jaws moment, when Jaws breaches the water and you're like, oh shoot, there's a big shark here. This was like, oh crud.
Yeah.
Now we've all seen the gator. Because before, it was just like Forster's character and a handful of people have experienced this gator firsthand. And now
you're
on
only
the
in
loose.
danger if you go down to the sewer.
Right. If you stay on the sewer, you're fine.
But now he's like, I'm here.
Yeah, he is on the loose. It was a well-filmed scene, too, with him just kind of busting through the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm going to use this phrase probably at least for the second time tonight. Chaos ensued. So once the gator's out on the streets and running, for whatever crazy reason, this cop comes flying around the corner in a cop car and slams into like 3 other parked cars, and everything explodes like he ran into a fuel tanker or something. Like, I'm like, what the heck? Why?
How did that even happen?
It just didn't make a lot of sense. But just before that was a pretty epic emergence of a giant alligator out of the sidewalk in Chicago. So I thought that was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah, that was cool. For me, and I know I did this last week, but the final scene really got me.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it because, like I said before, we had the campiness of the wedding scene. And here they've lured the gator back to his nest. And they've got to lure him to the methane area because that's where I'm going to blow him up. And they had this plan worked out. And everything is going as he hoped. He avoids the gator. He sets the timer on the bomb. So the bomb has a 2-minute timer.
Yeah.
He climbs up to the manhole. And right as he's going up to it, this old lady pulls her car up and her wheel is on top of the manhole cover.
She parks right on his manhole cover.
And he can't get out. Meanwhile, she's waiting on a garbage truck to do its thing.
Yeah,
and
the garbage truck was blocking her. So she lands on the manhole.
Yeah.
Everybody's trapped.
And it was just brilliant. The way the editing was, it was going from scene to scene to scene. It's going to the alligator. It's going to the timer. It's going to Forster knocking, screaming, trying to get this lady's attention. The lady's in the car has her window rolled up. You see the girlfriend, Marissa, pull up. She's banging on the window. You got to move. You got to move. She's yelling at the garbage truck driver. And all this sequence is super intense.
Yeah, it's very tightly filmed too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it. The way it was filmed, like I was super invested. I know he's not going to get blown up.
Right.
But at the time though, I'm acting like I feel like he might get blown up. We got to get this garbage truck out of the way.
Well, I love that Marissa yanks the door open and just shoves the old lady over and moves the car. Like at the last second, the herpetologist comes through, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty epic.
Yeah, no, it was great. Of course, it explodes. Alligator pieces go everywhere. Yeah, great ending. Great ending. So, yeah, I did love that scene.
That was a good one.
What did you think of we always talk about in this podcast, you can't kill kids in these horror films.
Okay. That should have been my other setback. I forgot about that.
You didn't like that scene.
No, you can't kill kids. Don't kill kids.
But it's effective, though. Come on.
It is effective, yeah. So when the gator's finally out and free, he's meandering neighborhoods and ends up in somebody's backyard swimming pool, where, of course, a bunch of kids are having somebody's birthday party. They're not in the pool. Yeah, a pirate party. So these little, 7, 8, 9-year-old boys have their buddy blindfolded, and they're going to make him walk the plank, and they march him out onto the diving board of the pool. And then at the last second, they see the gator. I don't even know if they shoved him in.
Yeah,
or
they kind of give him a shove, right?
Did they?
Right as they're seeing him. Like
that's when they shoved him.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if they intentionally shoved him or it was like a panic moment and he got accidentally pushed. Regardless, little Johnny went into the pool with the gator and did not come back out. And that breaks the rules, and I don't like that. It was very sad and gory. Wait, and wasn't this movie rated MA?
Shudder had an MA.
Which is ridiculous. Like, it's not even as scary as Jaws. Like, not even close.
It's like PG-13.
Yeah, at best.
Yeah.
So, that was weird. That was weird that Shudder has this listed as MA. Is there cursing in it? Like, a
not
sprinkling?
Much. Yeah, not much. It's pretty clean film. I mean, again, other than appendages, like there's a guy hoisting up an arm or a leg.
Yeah. You see people get their appendages chopped off by a gator.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is an alligator movie. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what else a gator would do to you.
Yeah, you could watch
That's
it.
what they do.
I mean, you could watch it with your kids, right? I mean, for the most part, like as long as they're okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's
See
gross and
violence
a bit
and all
gory.
that.
Yes.
Is it fair to compare this film to Jaws?
Well, the unfairness to this film is that anything, especially with a natural monster that came out after Jaws, is going to be compared to Jaws. You just can't not compare it to Jaws.
Right.
There's my double negative for the night. But yeah, it's fair because that's the way the timeline fell, you know?
Right.
Like it just have to. Jaws kind of set the standard for
Yeah.
Predator movies, and
I know last week for Orca, or last episode for Orca, we said it's not as fair because they went in a different direction. This one kind of falls into the blueprint of Jaws a little more.
yeah, I'd say it's closer. Oh, okay, so maybe this is a mix. Really, I hadn't thought about this. But so Jaws is just a predator in the ocean. We don't ever get like a reason why this great white starts picking on Amityville, do we? Like he's there. It's feeding season, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it just happens. It's a
Right.
freak. Whereas the orca movie is, it's a revenge story for this one particular orca against this one particular guy, but he takes it out on a whole village. Whereas this is more of a nature turns on the humans because the humans have been screwing things up.
Yeah.
Because the Slade Pharmaceutical is doing this illegal testing and it's dumping chemical-laden animals. First of all, the gator shouldn't have been purchased to begin with, and that's a whole nother theme or issue we could talk about.
Yeah.
The gator should not have been purchased from Florida and taken to Chicago and then flushed into the sewer system. But also, the pharmaceutical company should not be doing these illegal things and unethical things and then flushing them into the sewage.
Yeah.
And so the gator is like these are your sins coming back to find you out,
Right.
because you made all these horrible choices, dumb humans.
Yeah.
So maybe there's even a third category,
That's true. This one definitely has more of a lessons learned, whereas in Jaws, it just, like you said, it just happened. It's an unfortunate situation.
Right.
An emergency hit this town.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do anything wrong.
Okay, let's put ourselves in those three situations. Which of those is scarier to you? Like, it's just a freak thing that happens. It's this one animal has it out for this guy and you might be collateral damage, or we've screwed up and now nature's, getting us back. Like, which of those philosophically is more frightening?
I think the last one, not that I'm screwing up the environment, but we as humans, every time we use aerosol cans or we're doing,
Right.
all this dumping of garbage in the oceans and the rivers.
Right, the glyphosate stuff. And
You and I, we've been to West Virginia many times. We have family up there, and it just kills us to see water bottles everywhere. Like
these beautiful waterfalls are just littered with trash.
Yeah, and I just hate that. And so it would be awful if something happened, nature, like,
Swamp Thing
evolved.
comes out.
Yeah, Swamp Thing comes out and starts slaying us,
Yeah.
Water bottle man emerges from the lake.
I agree, that would be terrifying. But for me, more terrifying is the Jaws scenario because there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like it sucks if Swamp Thing has to come and like teach us all a lesson, but I can like reckon with that in my head.
Yeah.
Whereas the Jaws thing is like, oh no, like, there's no rhyme or reason. This thing is just after us. Like that to me is like scarier on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Or a
No, I can see that.
psychological level. Some level. I don't know what level, but it's scarier to me.
Last episode, we debuted a new segment called Research Corner. Kim, what do you have for us this week?
All right. So from Research Corner, I don't have a lot of science facts to throw at you. I mean, we could dig into, can alligators actually live in a sewer? I think there's arguments that they probably could make it work, even in a cold place like Chicago, because, sewer's underground. It keeps more of a constant temperature, blah, blah, blah. There wasn't a whole lot of, misinformation on alligators in the movie, I didn't think. But from watching that interview with Lewis Teague, the director, I did learn some interesting, or it reminded me actually of some interesting historical facts. Maybe this is more historical corner with Kim today.
Okay.
That it really was a thing for people to travel to Florida, buy a baby. It was very legal for many years to buy a baby alligator and then travel back home to wherever you came from with your baby alligator.
That's crazy.
Over state lines, whatever. And this movie set, in the early 80s, like late 70s, early 80s. And we were still doing it then. I don't know how long it went on before, like, finally somebody stepped in and was like, we can't be doing this.
Yeah.
This is not okay.
Right.
These are can be giant menacing animals, and you're just traveling across state lines with them. Like, that's not all right.
Yeah.
But I know I do love some Florida history, and there's some books and things that I've read. And, my mom was a school teacher. Most of our vacations involved some sort of educational tidbit wherever we went. And I heard this story pretty much my whole life is like, from the earliest times that people were coming to Florida as a vacation spot. So we're talking like undeveloped Florida. The only thing we had was a railroad and a few hotels. It was very common for the rich to come to Florida, buy their baby alligators, and take them back to their other fancy hotels. And so there were big fancy hotels in large states like New York, New Jersey, and things that had ponds or fountains in the front that would have little alligators in them because the travelers from Florida would show back up with their alligators and then be like, wait, I don't know what to do with this. Here, you have a little spot of water. Take this thing off my hands. So it's pretty crazy. Like, that was still kind of happening.
It's not a duck.
Yeah, exactly. These are not gerbils.
Here's a turtle that I bought.
Right. So it's kind of crazy that went on for so long.
All right. Now's the time when we say yay or nay to this film. What say ye, Kim?
Okay, this is a yay for me. It does engage my gag reflex a little bit. It's kind of a gross movie, but not too gross. And it's a fun watch. Is it Jaws? No, but it's decent enough that it's an entertaining watch. And something that I thought was interesting about this is afterwards, we were talking about, like, is it trying to say something? And I was like, no, actually, you've got the big pharma chemical testing going on here, and they're kidnapping dogs. And I don't even think we mentioned this. They were cutting the larynxes out of the dogs so they couldn't bark while they had them in the laboratory testing. Like, it's just all these ethics violations, just horrible stuff, And then, of course, selling and transporting gators and dumping them in sewers. Like, it had all these issues. And my first response was, yeah, but it didn't really ever discuss it. And I think that is like the social waters that we live and swim in nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Like, every movie takes every opportunity it gets now in 2023 to beat you over the head with its message. Like, it preaches at every opportunity. It's going to preach at you. Whereas this, like, put the stuff in front of you and said, yeah, this stuff happens. Like, and it ain't great. You figure out what to do with it. Like, you think about it. You come to your own conclusions. Yeah. And I actually really appreciate that. I was like, oh, no, it was saying stuff about this, but it was letting the audience, like, kind of wrestle with it and make its own conclusions, or giving the audience, like, the knowledge that this shady stuff goes on. You need to think about it without beating the audience over the head with its own message. Yeah. And I actually really appreciated that.
I agree. The scene you just mentioned with the dog, he asked, why is it so quiet around here? And he's, we cut the larynx so that we don't have to hear the dog's bark. Yeah. They're showing this cute little dog, like, trying to bark, and nothing's coming out.
No, it's so
If that were made today, there would be some other character that would be preaching, do you know how wrong that is? You know, this, and they would be preaching and just saying all these things that we already know. Right. We know what's wrong. Like, you don't have to blab at us about it.
No normal human hears a person say, we cut their larynx, and thinks, yeah, that seems like a feasible thing to do. Like, that's terrible.
That's why I like the older movies better than the newer movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Older movies, they show it to you. You know what? I get it. It's bad. I hate this. Right. You know what? And then that's why these guys are the bad guys.
And maybe you didn't know those things were happening, and this movie brought it to your awareness. Yeah. Right? That's a good thing. Just bringing something into the light so you can be like, I didn't know that was going on, or that was a thing. Like, we should probably do something about that, Right. And they didn't have to beat you over the head with their own philosophical messaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of refreshing.
I agree. And I too call this a yay. It is an enjoyable film. It's definitely surprising at how good it is for being a B film.
Right.
You know, like you said, it's not Jaws, but they don't have nearly the money.
No.
And they don't have Spielberg at the helm, and they don't have all these things that Jaws had going for it.
Right.
For them not to have that, like, it came pretty close. Like,
Yeah.
they did a pretty good job.
I mean, if we were just matching up Jaws the shark to Ramon the alligator, just animatronics,
Yeah.
I think they could go head to head.
Yeah, the effects are
honestly.
right there.
Yeah, the effects were there. The acting, the storytelling, that's where, you know, Jaws is superior. But the animatronics, the practical effects, pretty much head to head, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. So it's a yay for both of us.
Yeah, yay.
We do have some comments on our Instagram that I'll read.
All right.
Though I do want to remind you, last episode we did announce that we have an email.
That's right.
Attack of the 20th Century at outlook.com.
Yeah. Send us an email?
Yeah, send us an email. Retro Horror Vault says the pool scene and the wedding attack.
Oh, the pool scene. I don't like it.
Old but not obsolete says proper fun 80s creature feature. Thumbs up.
Oh, what a name. I like it.
Yeah, creature feature. Yeah, this is definitely a creature feature.
Yes, this is a creature feature.
Barlow's Boutique says one of my childhood favorites. That pool scene gave me nightmares for years.
Yeah.
If you saw this when you were a kid,
You would not be jumping off the diving board the next day.
Yeah. You're going to make sure that pool is empty before you jump in.
Exactly. Hey, I went for a walk with a friend this morning, and we crossed over around a little body of water. You know, it's Florida, and it's not clear water. This was like lake water that's dark. You can't see to the bottom. They're just bubbles coming up. And we were both, you know, like, there's no way anybody's getting in that water. That water has gators in it. We know for a fact there are gators in there. Made me think of the movie.
Yeah. We continue our summer swim series with our next episode. What are we going to watch?
All right. To continue our summer swim, we will be visiting The Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Ooh.
a 1954 Universal monster film. It is rated G. And this is what IMDb says about it. A strange prehistoric beast lurks in the depths of the Amazonian jungle. A group of scientists try to capture the animal and bring it back to civilization for study. I wonder what could go wrong. Yeah, so
Very
this is
cool.
a classic. I believe it's available on Amazon to rent.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to watch this before we talk about it, I think you can find it there.
You got 2 weeks?
And you got 2 weeks.
All right. Happy movie watching, everybody.
Enjoy your movies, guys. Peace out.
Peace out.